on Tuesday, Giselle Nightingale, her husband, and her son ran from their home on the Rubidoux. With the help of volunteers, they came to reclaim some of what's theirs from the water.
The smell is horrible.
This house has been in Mike's family for 40 years, so it's awash with history.
Muddy.
But word from a neighbor stops them short.
The chief of police just said that everybody on this road needs to get everything that they need because the river is going to come up about another 4 feet.
Here we go again. We were cleaning, but I guess that's at a standstill since we have to get out again.
Nightingale lost her heirlooms to the waters that flooded North Street.
I had my mom's cookbooks back from the World War II era, and my parents have long since passed away, and I forgot to pick those up, and they're gone, destroyed.
And an encyclopedia set where her father detailed his campaign in the Second World War.
It was in his handwriting and stuff in the book, and that's gone.
Volunteer Eric Harris was a total stranger until hours ago.
It just makes you feel sad and hardened. So, but the only thing we can do is try to come together as a people and try to help the needy best as we can.
As the Nightingales scramble under the threat of rising water, you can see the exhaustion in their eyes. The water of the Rubidoux, their longtime neighbor, is eroding their spirits.
I'm getting tired of it. Somebody needs to call off the rain. It's discouraging. I know it was bad last summer with a drought, but it kind of makes you feel which is worse, you know. At least with a drought, I wasn't homeless.
So this is how the jail stands today, in sharp contrast to its predecessor from 1903. This jail has state-of-the-art surveillance and safety systems, modern pods to house inmates by gender and severity of crime. But no Newton County inmate has ever stayed here. The heat is kept just hot enough to make sure the pipes don't burst. Instead, the sheriff says this county spends about $5,000 a month to house inmates in other counties and pay for their meals and medical expenses. That number doesn't include transporting inmates and the manpower to do it. But the sheriff says the hardest part is watching criminals walk out the door because the jail is not open and the county can't go past its monthly budget of housing inmates elsewhere.
I look at it every day. That's hard, but to sit out there and watch some that's been suspended sentence walking the streets because they've got in the house and stole something off someone's front yard and watch them wave at you and knowing that they're not going to jail. That's the hard thing about it.
They held the mantle as America's largest generation for decades. Born from 1946 to 1964, baby boomers are the fruit of their parents' post-war labors. They're known for hard work as civil rights advocates, enduring Vietnam and witnessing a presidential resignation. But now they have a more dubious distinction. According to the Centers for Disease Control, they are a generation increasingly likely to take their own lives. The report says in 2010, more than 38,000 people took their own lives, thousands more than died in car accidents. And while prevention efforts usually focus on the young and elderly, this is an alarming rise of suicides among the middle-aged. With the greatest increase among whites and Native Americans, men are more likely to take their own lives than women.
He's been gone 3 years.
Attorney and head of the Springfield Bar Association, Krista Hogan, didn't read about these statistics in a medical journal. She lived them. Her ex-husband, Jim Schuler, took his own life in 2010. Schuler and Hogan had been married for 20 years and had 3 children together. Schuler had a lifelong battle with bipolar disorder with high highs and depressive lows marked by volatility.
And I know that the person who was most affected by that was him. I think that ultimately is what resulted in his death.
At the same time, Hogan's husband Ted had terminal cancer. What's more, the men were friends. Hogan said she was dealing with 2 men, one trying desperately to live, the other trying desperately to die. Hogan said Schuler went from driven and successful in college and working hard as a young husband and father to a decline over many years.
One of the saddest moments I remember is Jim breaking down in tears and saying to me, I used to be able to do anything. If you wanted to help someone who had lost a loved one to suicide, don't ask why. Don't ask what happened, because Nobody knows, and it doesn't matter.
And why more baby boomers are committing suicide is something the experts can't agree on. Dwayne Long of the National Alliance of Mental Illness in Springfield says people theorize about the stress on the baby boomers.
In many cases, they're being called upon to care for their aging parents in their home, so they're taking on that responsibility. Plus, kids are staying, their children are coming back and living with them.
Hogan says people like her ex-husband had death ideations for a long time.
I think the energy needs to be put into addressing mental illness like we do other diseases. There needs to be treatment. There needs to be medications and protocols.
Hogan says maybe the baby boomers will be the last generation to forgo treatment and therapy and work instead in favor of better mental health.
The sooner we can remove this veil of stigma and secrecy and address the underlying illness,